I'm edition of Shaftesbury Society. We're coming to you live from the Midtown Raleigh headquarters of the John Locke Foundation. And as I say every week, I'm sorry I can't help it, we've got a great panel for you today, something really, really special you're going to want to know about. If you haven't already registered to attend the Carolina Liberty Conference that's coming up at the end of February, this is going to give you a sneak preview of what you are about to miss if you don't register. We want you to register today. This is going to be great. Are you looking to kind of connect up with more free market-minded conservatives? Are you ready to have some fun? Boy, we can all use that this year, can't we? It would be a really good freedom-oriented jumpstart to 2022. And that's why the Locke Foundation has revived the conference that everybody has known about for several years here in North Carolina, the place to be for free market conservatives. The Carolina Liberty Conference, we call it now, CLC, you probably know it as. So what is in store for the 2022 version of that? My colleagues here at the Locke Foundation and Carolina Journal are going to give you all the details to let you know what you are about to miss out on if you don't register and buy your ticket today. Donald Bryson is with us. Donald, of course, is the President and Chief Strategy Officer of the Locke Foundation. Dr. Andy Jackson is the Director of the Civitas Center for Public Integrity here at Locke. So many things going on that hit Andy's area you're going to want to know about today and at the conference. Donna King is Editor-in-Chief of Carolina Journal, and Brooke Medina is Vice President of Communications for the Locke Foundation. Folks, welcome to the CLC sneak preview. I'm really excited to talk about all of this.
Thank you for having
us. Donald, let's start with you. So this has quite a legacy here in North Carolina, the CLC conference. Tell us about the legacy and what folks can expect this year.
Sure. So as the audience knows, and I'm always grateful to talk to the Shaftesbury Society, they're the smartest people in North Carolina, but they probably all know this. The Civitas Institute and the John Locke Foundation merged last year. And so this is part of our combining capabilities. The John Locke Foundation started in 1990, and it became typical of the John Locke Foundation to once a year have, or not once a year, but every so often have an anniversary dinner. At the same time, the Civitas Institute came along in 2005 and immediately started this event called the Conservative Leadership Conference. Generally speaking, it would last half of a Friday, and then or at least half of a Saturday. There would be a dinner, there would be breakout sessions, general sessions, all kinds of conservative speakers. And we've had lots of speakers at CLC, the Conservative Leadership Conference, over the years. Charles Krauthammer, Newt Gingrich, Ann Coulter, really big names in conservatism, libertarianism, classical liberalism. This is the place where those three groups of people can come together, share ideas, hear the leadership, not only thought leaders, but also political leaders of all of those philosophies, and they can come together to this conference, the Conservative Leadership Conference. Since Civitas and the John Locke Foundation have merged together, we weren't able to have it in 2020. We weren't able to have the event in 2021, but we have rebranded it. We are intent on having it in 2022. No matter what, we're very excited about it, and we have rebranded it as the Carolina Liberty Conference. So we're reintroducing the traditional Locke anniversary dinner along with the Carolina Liberty Conference. And this is the event we're going to have February 25th and 26th at the Crabtree Valley Marriott in Raleigh. We're very excited about the speakers. I think we're going to talk about our keynote speakers here in a little bit, but there'll be lots of breakout sessions on things that we're interested in. What are market-oriented solutions on healthcare? What are we going to say, and what do we think about critical race theory? What are the issues in housing? What is the left doing in North Carolina? These are the issues that can come together, and we're going to hear from a powerhouse lineup of speakers and breakout sessions at this conference.
I like the way that you described it about the merging of the capabilities, because it's really kind of double the content, double the fun, and those who oppose liberty would say double the trouble.
Well, I mean, that's their trouble. It's not our trouble. It's our fun. And we're really excited about it. Not only the content that comes from the John Locke Foundation, of which we believe it's high quality and we're eager to share it with activists all across North Carolina, but we have several national groups and national speakers coming in. And so this is the place to be. If you're a free market conservative, if you're libertarian, if you like the idea that there should be less government and more liberty, this is the place to be.
Terrific. Donald, I know that you are going to be there throughout the conference, of course, talking with people. I'm sure you're going to be sticking your head into all the different sessions, all sorts of things going on. And folks, this is why it is going to be the place to be the last weekend of February. You want to be there. Now, if you want more details, first of all, if you're watching us live on Facebook, I know that my colleague Brene is going to be putting in a link to the conference in the comments section there. Really easy way to just click on that. You can see so far the speakers that are scheduled. You can take a look at some of the sessions. Also, if you just want to put an address into your laptop, go to lockclc.com. Lockclc.com. That'll take you right there. You can register, buy your ticket today. We want to make sure that you have a seat to be part of this. Donald, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate that. We're going to go ahead and bring on some folks and talk about other things and what's going on at the conference. Let's bring in Dr. Andy Jackson. Andy, appreciate you being here. You, of course, are in charge of the Center for Public Integrity, Civitas Center for Public Integrity at Locke. And that means you are following election law, election questions, and boy, do we have a lot of that, election lawsuits going on in the state. Tell us what you have planned for the conference.
Right. There's a whole host of things that have been going on in 2020, since 2020, that bring up questions about, how secure are our elections? How much integrity do we have going in to these elections? Can we trust the results? Can we verify the results? And so I'm really excited about a couple of things that we have going on. First of all, I'm going to be hosting a panel about how we are keeping tabs on what's going on with left-wing organizations infiltrating the electoral process in North Carolina, who they are, what are they doing, what is their, who's funding those activities. And I'm excited about the guests that we have for this panel. We have AP Dillon. She's an investigative reporter with the North State Journal. She has won awards for her coverage of things like trying to oppose Common Core in North Carolina, for example. Also, my colleague, Jim Sterling, who is a research fellow here at the John Locke Foundation, who has really gotten into the nuts and bolts of the funding mechanisms. How do all these left-wing organizations get the money to do the things that they do? And I am particularly excited that we're also going to have Scott Walter. He is the president of, and I'll make sure I get this right, of the Capital Research Center. They do one of their projects is Influence Watch, which is essentially a national scale equivalent of John Locke's Mapping the Left.
Andy, let me just bring you up to date. Scott is able to join us here. Here's what I'm going to do, folks. I'm going to see if I can bring Scott on here for just a moment. Let's see if I can do that. Scott, are you with us?
Yes, thanks so much.
Hi there. Let me get this off the screen. There we go. Welcome. So Andy was just saying that this is also important. We know that the left is incredibly well structured and well funded. Give us a sense of what you expect to talk about when you join us here at the Carolina Liberty Conference.
Sure. Well, the main conduit for all the Zuck Buck hundreds of millions, the Center for Tech and Civic Life, that they just finally released all their data on their spending. So I'll have complete info on all their spending in North Carolina, and can also give you some highlights from a few of the other battleground states, and talk about, another thing that we just discovered is that group got 25 million, in addition to the hundreds of millions from Zuckerberg. They got 25 million from Arabella Advisors, which some people may have possibly have heard of. It's not a very well-known group, even though in 2020 it raised $1.7 billion for all kinds of left-wing schemes. So very excited to be there and talk with you guys about that and hear from your election experts about what happened in the Tar Heel state. Also excited to be on a panel about mapping the left, because as proud as I am of our influencewatch.org, mapping the left was first. We were just copying the great work of mapping the left.
And there you go. What do they say? If you copy someone, that's the sincerest form of flattery, I guess, right?
That's right. There's also T.S. Eliot's great line, immature writers imitate mature writers steal.
There you go. So, folks, this is going to be a great session. You do not want to miss this. Scott Walter, the president of Capital Research Center, is going to be a guest, and he's just described what he's going to be talking about. The left, not only here in North Carolina, across the country, incredibly well funded. A lot of it behind the scenes. You may not know about it while it's happening during an election cycle. Scott and Dr. Andy Jackson and his panel, they're going to be talking about all of this. You are definitely going to want to be there. This is a session not to miss. Again, lockclc.com is where you can go to find out more, to register, to buy your ticket, to be a part of the Carolina Liberty Conference at the end of February. Scott, looking forward to it. Thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate you giving us a little bit of insight, little sneak peek of what you're going to be talking about.
Thanks.
So, Andy, you have done so much work on mapping the left, and I feel like we can't emphasize enough how much the freedom movement in North Carolina and nationwide, frankly, how much of a challenge we face from groups like this.
That's true. When you hear about all these debates, one of the things is, since I end up being kind of on the front lines with a lot of these things, with conflict over legislation, over what different groups are doing during the election season, is, at least from a monetary standpoint, certainly not from an intellectual standpoint, is how much we are outgunned on this. The flow of funding and groups and their activities can seem daunting at times. Although I think that if you have a good basic knowledge of what they're doing, how they work, I think that kind of eliminates a bit of that fear factor there. It's always better to know, who your opponents are and what they are doing and how do they do it. And so that's what we are offering there. That's what we're looking forward to talking about in the panel. As I was about to mention before Scott came on as well, I had the chance to see one of his presentations, and I was really impressed by it. I've been advocating for him to join us here, and I'm really happy that he is. He's going to be, in addition to the panel, as he mentioned, the main speaker at our Saturday breakfast. So certainly make sure that you come in early, catch that breakfast if you're coming into the CLC, because you definitely will not regret seeing that. And I think you're going to be at least partially blown away by the information he's going to be presenting.
Andy, I'm sure people are wondering about all the lawsuits about, is the primary going to be changed and things like that. Can you give us just a real quick update? When is the primary election day now? And a quick status of lawsuits about maps?
Well, we actually have oral arguments on this Wednesday in the redistricting lawsuits. And the primary's been pushed back to the middle of May. It may get pushed back further, depending on what the court decides. They should come out with a decision relatively quick. And then right on the tail of that, we have the Supreme Court oral arguments on February 14th on the voter ID constitutional amendment. So we've got it's a very fluid situation right now. We've got a whole lot coming down the pike on the legal front. So we'll definitely want to be talking about that. We're also going to be taking advantage of this time. There's going to be some sessions on election integrity during Friday. So make sure you come in for the Friday sessions as well. We're going to be discussing what you can do to kind of get yourself trained to be somebody watching out for election integrity, start forming networks to help ensure integrity for the 2022 election. There's a whole lot of good stuff on the elections front we're going to be talking about.
So, folks, I know you're going to have lots of questions. Andy Jackson will be there. Scott Walter will be there at the Carolina Liberty Conference, and they'll be providing updates at that point, what we will know about lawsuits, about primary elections, about general elections, and election integrity, election law in general. This is really a key portion of the Carolina Liberty Conference. We want you to be a part of that. Andy, thanks for that update. You talk about the complexity. Donna King, who is editor-in-chief of Carolina Journal. Donna, that seems like a perfect segue to you, because at Carolina Journal, of course, you are trying to harness all of your reporting and journalistic resources to bring this all together in an understandable form for people, and that is quite a challenge.
It really is. I mean, if I was going to build a movie trailer to 2022, it would certainly be extremely expensive, lots of action and bells and whistles and going all over the country, because I think that's what we're really going to be focused on. Of course, our focus is North Carolina coverage, but now with our primaries being May 17th, we're going to be really in the thick of it with a lot of other states. 2022 is here. The primaries are starting March 1st, are the very first ones. They're going to be coming, Texas, some of those. And now with ours being the 17th, we're going to be right in the thick of it with Idaho, Kentucky, Oregon, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, all having primaries on May 17th, assuming that that's what we go forward with and we don't get pushed off again. We're going to be focusing on a lot of the individual districts now that we have a 14th congressional district. That one will be really critical. And that new second congressional district with G.K. Butterfield, who's had that seat by 70%, won by 70% or more every single year for decades. That one's going to be a little more competitive. So we're really going to be focused on this. The challenge, though, is, and you and I both know, that there's a real erosion of trust between the electorate and the media in the last year and a half or so.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And in fact, I would just remind all of you who are watching us here, if you go to johnlocke.org and click on polls, you will come up with the latest versions of the Civitas poll over time. And the one from November 21st, Donna, is really incredible, because if you ask people about, do they have trust in media? Let me pull up one of the numbers here. Let's see. It is, so people were asked whether the national and local media skew too conservative or too liberal. Most feel that both their local news and media skews too liberal. That's 40%. And the sentiment's even stronger when it comes to the bias of national news at 50%. We also have other data from previous Civitas polls that shows that incredible percentages of North Carolinians are concerned that the next elections will not be free and fair. So you combine these two things together and it's a perfect storm.
It really is. It's really alarming, because we're walking into this 2022 knowing that we have that kind of history and those kind of poll numbers. And it's important to note, you have that perspective, what you described in the poll that we found, but 47% of those polled said that they get their news from either national cable networks or the national news. So they, the majority, the largest single majority, almost half of the electorate, is getting it from the very sources that they're not trusting. Only a small percentage get it from radio or from newspaper or from internet sites that they trust, things like that. So there really is a breakdown between the media industry and their responsibility to cover elections fairly, and those who would then go cast their vote. So playing that important role and really giving them the information they need, that's going to be critical, and it's something we're gearing up to do.
Now, I know at the Carolina Liberty Conference, you and your team are going to be there. Looking forward to mingling, talking to people, maybe even getting some news tips here and there.
I hope so. We're always on the lookout. We've got a good group coming. We're going to have Carolina Journal's writers ourselves. We're out there to answer questions and to talk about what we're facing, what we've experienced. There's a lot of knowledge, a lot of history and background in our newsroom, and it really makes for fantastic meetings, of course, but great coverage too. So we're really going to talk about what we're anticipating for 2022, maybe some war stories from old elections. I think it's going to be fascinating, because I always like that look behind the curtain to see how the news is made.
So folks, you are definitely going to want to be at the Carolina Liberty Conference, February 25th and 26th. For details, registration, to buy your ticket, and get it today. Make sure that you are not locked out, that you're one of the people who's going to be there. Go to lockclc.com to go ahead and get your tickets. Donna, thank you. Brooke Medina joining us also. Brooke, it's incredible, the media sources. Donna's talking about some of them, trust in media, all sorts of new media sources as well. And I know that you're going to be talking about that, have some folks who are going to be talking with people who attend the conference about new media and maybe places to go that they might not think of.
Yes, I'm so excited about that, because not only are we going to be discussing the problems and concerns, but also solutions. So we're well aware of the threats. We hear from our audience, you all, regularly about your concerns related to a lot of quote unquote big tech and a lot of the siloing of opinion and diversity, the lack of diversity of thought in media. And we are well aware of that. And so we think that it is important for us to highlight the many ways in which conservative, center-right voices have become much more entrepreneurial during the season of censorship challenges and feeling like they're treated unfairly. One of the things I wanted to note really quickly was what Donna King touched on related to just the complexity of covering elections and how oftentimes at the state level, many of the reporters at the state and local level have a good handle on what is actually going on related to local and state elections. But oftentimes the most coverage comes from the national outlets who just kind of parachute in a journalist, and this journalist just does not understand the nuance and the complexity of a lot of these elections issues at play and the redistricting sagas in North Carolina, because it's a lot to process. And so I'm really excited to also hear from Andy, Scott, and Donna, and many of the other panelists who are able to kind of navigate some of the nuance at the local, state, and federal levels. But big tech is definitely one we've heard our audience talk about. They've expressed their concerns. And so we want to talk about, okay, well, where are the opportunities? How do we utilize existing technologies and big infrastructure, digital infrastructure within some of those larger tech companies? But also, how do we also look for new ways to sort of branch out from the status quo and ensure that conservative voices are heard? So we're going to talk about like the spread of outlets such as Substack, for example, or maybe some of the other podcasting outlets like Spotify. Spotify's been in the news a lot lately.
Right.
Before Spotify, though, iTunes was it. iTunes and Google Play, they were the top dominators. Now it's Spotify. And so we're going to explore that and think through, okay, what does a free market look like in the tech space, and how can conservatives be able to channel those opportunities and get their voices heard?
Boy, big tech is a huge, huge topic today. And talk to conservatives, and there are different viewpoints among conservatives. So I expect there's going to be a very interesting discussion and debate on your panel.
Yes, definitely. And so the way we're putting this panel together is we're going to ensure that there are conservatives that have different solutions, maybe even different solutions from one another, and proposals when it comes to addressing big tech concerns. And we're going to listen to that. We're big tech conservatives here at Locke, and we want to make sure that we are not siloing our colleagues' voices. And so we want to bring numerous center-right leaders to the table to discuss possible solutions and debate them as well. And so we're going to be putting together a panel of at least 4 tech policy and new media experts. And we're going to have a robust conversation. It might be a friendly debate as well. And I hope you all can make it there to that. And we'll definitely leave time for Q&A at the end.
Now, you mentioned that Locke is a group of big tent conservatives. Locke also has a sense of humor, and there is humor that is built into this year's Carolina Liberty Conference. And we are really, really excited to have a very special guest who's going to be with us at the conference. And Brooke, tell us about this, and what was the impetus behind inviting the Babylon Bee?
Yes. So many in our audience, they love a good laugh, as do we, because sometimes if you don't laugh, you'll cry. And there have been some challenges these past couple of years that have certainly given us plenty of reasons to cry. So we decided we were going to invite Seth Dillon, who is the CEO of Babylon Bee, which is now America's favorite satire site. And he's going to give the keynote on Friday evening. And he actually sent us a message. And so I'm about to play that as well. But he is going to be discussing the role of satire in society and how that shapes culture and helps us grapple with and talk about difficult topics, because sometimes being so on the nose about difficult topics or hot button issues is a way to kind of just silo ourselves and not be able to engage thoughtfully with others. But if we can bring some comedic relief to it, I think sometimes we can get through some of these issues that we otherwise wouldn't have if we were too serious about it. So Seth is actually...
So folks, if we haven't yet convinced you that you need to be at the Carolina Liberty Conference at the end of February, Raleigh Marriott. Now go to lockclc.com to get your tickets and to find out more about everything that's planned. But if we haven't been able to convince you yet, take a listen to this gentleman.
All right, guys, big announcement here. This is Seth Dillon, CEO of the Babylon Bee. I've got a speaking event coming up. Okay, this is the Carolina Liberty Conference. It's going to be in February, the 25th, 6th. You got to register for this thing. It's a great event. It's all about liberty. We're going to be talking about free speech, censorship, all that stuff that's been affecting the bee. It's affected me personally, professionally. We want you to come out, enjoy this time. There's going to be tons of networking, activists, legislators are going to be there, hundreds of people. Great event. February 25th and 26th. It's in Raleigh, North Carolina, the Raleigh Marriott Crabtree Valley. There's information about this. You have to register though if you want to go. So go to this website. It's lockclc.com. Lock spelled LOCKE. CLC.com. So that's lockclc.com. Go register. We'll see you guys there.
And that is Seth Dillon. So he runs the Babylon Bee. So it's going to be a really fun, humorous session at the conference. You want to be a part of that. So let's bring Donna King and Andy back into the conversation here. Folks, are you with us?
I'm here.
Yes.
So we've got some other people, of course, that are going to be at the conference, and one of them that is really an exciting get for the Locke Foundation is Andy Puzder, who is the former CEO of CKE Restaurants. And if you ever had a Carl's Jr. burger, you know how good they are. Well, Andy ran that company. So what is Andy going to be talking about? Because business is now so much in the news, and I presume he's going to be addressing this, you know, and when we see business forces, sometimes they are weighing in on social issues now. And they say they need to do so because of their employees or a segment of their customer base. So it seems to me that Andy's got really a ripe area to talk about. Brooke, do you have a sense of what Andy's going to be speaking about?
About what Andy's speaking about, he's going to be discussing, well, I think myriad of different issues that he has uncovered in his election integrity research, some of the challenges that he has.
I'm sorry, I'm talking about Andy Puzder from CKE.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. It's our Wi-Fi connection here is misbehaving. I can blame big tech, I guess. No, Andy Puzder is going to be discussing a number of issues related to his own conservative commentary and his experiences as an entrepreneur and navigating just the calls for cancellation. Sometimes he has pushed the envelope in certain areas, and just discuss what does it look like for a business leader to navigate to navigate these waters that sometimes are just filled with political sharks. And so he will discuss his experience on that front. I know that we have a number of entrepreneurs and business owners in our audience that will likely be there, and I would be curious for them to pull us aside as well and share their own experiences. But that's really where Andy's coming from, is his own experience in corporate America and how to navigate it as a conservative.
That's going to be really exciting to hear because he has such a wealth of knowledge and experience and perspective on not only being in the business world, but believing in free markets and free minds. And so he's going to have a lot to say about that. That'll be a great session. Andy and Jackson, go ahead.
I'm sorry. One more thing he's going to be discussing as well, is woke corporations, woke capitalism. We know that our audience has expressed concern at all, which is interesting. It's interesting that we're discussing this as we're preparing to observe and watch the Olympics happening in China right now, where many corporations are afraid to speak out against human rights abuses against the Uyghur people, and yet they love to kowtow to these woke mobs here in the United States in terms of, just requiring certain speech compliances with their preferred pet issue. And so Puzder will also be discussing that.
All right, sounds good. That is really, really timely, of course. Woke business, woke politics. So Dr. Andy Jackson, back to you for the elections for a moment. I know this is going to be a really big issue. You're probably going to have a lot of people at the conference who are wanting to talk with you about that. If there are people watching us right now, Andy, who are thinking, I'm wondering if I should go to this conference, tell them what they're going to hear.
Well, in addition to the things we've talked about before about the threats to election integrity and what you can do as an activist citizen to try to enhance and protect the integrity of our elections, finding out what's going on, mapping the left, and keeping up with what groups on the left are trying to do to influence and undermine the integrity of our elections. I mean, we're going to have all of that. In addition to that, one of the interesting things is when I've taught at different schools at different times, and in my experience, a lot of the aha moments you get are not necessarily the classroom instruction times. There's the times where the teacher and the student are able to talk outside the classroom after class when they have a question or they have a concept or an idea that they share. And it wasn't just the student getting the aha, I had it as well. That's one of the things I really enjoy about these kind of conferences, where you get to interact with a lot of people who are active, they're intelligent, they've experienced this. And I'm not just talking about the presenters, I'm talking about the fellow audience members. So I am, in addition to the panels that we're doing, I'm really looking forward to, during the lunchtime, between sessions, being able to mingle and interact with folks. So not just the panelists, but also the people listening today when they come out. I'm looking forward to talking to you as well and hearing your ideas.
And Donna, I suspect that you are also going to be looking forward to kind of mingling with folks and hearing what's on their minds, because you never know really what's going on with your readership, for example, of Carolina Journal, unless you're out there sometimes talking to folks.
That's exactly right. And hopefully some news tips along the way. I find that some of our best stories really come from our readers because they're out there, they're running businesses, they're seeing what's happening in their local communities with their counties and what's happening with candidates, those things. We really get some great stories from the people who read our publication and who come and really engage us and talk to us about it. We have a lot of folks here in our newsroom that have specialties, education, taxes, things like that, ABC law, and I really will have all of those folks there. And it really is a fascinating discussion. It's a great place to work because we have such great talks, and I'm looking forward to bringing it to the stage and talking with some of those who we get emails from all the time and who respond to our coverage. It's going to be interesting.
It's going to be an incredible 2 days, about a day and a half or so, at the Raleigh Marriott Crabtree Valley. We're talking about February 25th and 26th. That is a Friday afternoon, evening, and into Saturday morning and afternoon. Again, it is the Carolina Liberty Conference. This is the place you want to be if you believe in free markets, if you believe in election integrity. You want to come and hear everything that the experts have to say and have that opportunity to interact with them in the hallways, before sessions, after sessions. You definitely want to do that. And you want to have a good laugh with Seth Dillon from the Babylon Bee. It's an incredibly funny site, and we need to be laughing more in 2022 for sure. So make sure, if you haven't yet purchased your ticket, you want more information, go to lockclc.com. All the information is right there, and you can very quickly and securely buy your ticket to the conference to make sure that you are a part of this in 2022. Everybody, thanks so much. Looking forward to it. Great job. All sorts of wonderful stuff, interesting stuff that's going to be discussed at the conference. And I know people are going to be walking up to you and asking questions. So thanks for being with me today for the sneak peek at the conference.
Thank you.
And folks, thank you for joining us. Hope that you will be there at the end of February. And again, lockclc.com. If you're watching us on Facebook, the link is in the comments section right there. Makes it really fast and easy for you. Hope you all have a great week. Join us again next Monday for another edition of Shaftesbury Society. I'm Donna Martinez on behalf of the entire